Deluxe.
I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from their claw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
Never trust the living.
It's Happy Days on podcast. Today we are here very much honored, I must say, to have the proudest son in South Africa. You know, when we're talking about abantu abahalalisayo like us, Soweto Emdeni at the zone, and we are very much honored to have Dr Lucky Mazibuko. Thank you so much for inviting us, and which is honor endaweni yakho esizokhuluma kabanzi nje ngejeni yakho nje life.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rich, for the opportunity.
Oh, yes. So maybe we can start abantu abakwazi upbringing yakho ukuthi usuka phi like ngempilo nje yakho manje wabeka nje kancane usuka ebuncaneni bakho.
Well, ngazalelwa eMidlands ezone 10.
Okay.
And then when I was about 10, then we moved to Emdeni. Which is where the zone Emdeni is situated. Yeah. And then from there, there's always a contest between whether I belong to Midlands or Emdeni or to South Africa. Yes, I think I belong everywhere.
You belong everywhere, just to South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ukuba is servant, Jay, because I know quite a lot about you in terms of ukusiza nje abantu. Iqale kanjani nabo ukuthi nje ube umuntu othanda ukusiza emphakathini?
Well, ugogo wami unoyishada ngamaqhokoze, may her soul rest in peace. Used to sell alcohol illegally at Westgate Station.
Okay.
And there were a lot of so-called hobos at that time, and this was deep into apartheid.
Okay.
So some of those guys who were hobos were her best friends. So she would adopt, say, maybe 2 every month, clean them up, and then bezohlala nathi ekhaya eMidlands. So that is where the culture yokusiza abantu came from. But secondly, I experienced discrimination when I was very young. So my grandmother used to ahambe nami ekuseni ngabo4 makayothengiswa utshwala, and then mina funa ngibuye neyigubha ngithi. So so mangibuya neyigubha ekuseni before I go to school. And then ibhasini sigibela nabo teacher, nabo nurse, nama municipal officials and so on. So mabe ngibona ke ngikhirile igubhu lezi, obviously they have a very strong stench. So they would insult me and say all kinds of and say all kinds of derogatory names. Just to make me feel bad. So I experienced discrimination at a very young age. And not only from white people, which was the typical situation in South Africa, yet discrimination between black and white and so on. So right from then I knew that discrimination actually has no race. It's just that people are born filthy. And people are born angry, and people are born bitter. And I decided there and then that, I'm gonna fight for the underdog there and then. Yeah.
Okay. But nje yena uLucky Mazibuko bekefuna ukuba yini nje bakakhula saseyintwana yebo ngesikhathi nje mhlawumbe usahebe ugogo usageleza uthanda ukuba yini empilweni nje?
Well, I always wanted to be a journalist, a columnist, because even at school when I was in matric, I started a newspaper, a school newspaper called Freedom News.
Okay.
Among some of the popular people that I went to school with, about Dayz, who is also an anchor with SAPC, about Panyaza Lusufi. You know, so I started that publication, which was called Freedom News, and I was the editor of Freedom News. Yeah, that was at high school. Yeah. So I've always wanted to write, and even when I was a child, you know, my grandfather had 2 wives, so he never went to school. So when they write him letters from Ekaya, then I was the one who was going to read for him.
Okay.
And when we get to the juicy stuff, he'd always ask me to close my ears.
Okay.
You know, so that so that ngingazozwela indaba ezishubile lezi ezizobe zikhulunywa. So I always wanted to. I was always writing. I was always talking to people and saying stuff. Yeah, I always had a voice.
So I spoke to the great one. I spoke to
Yes.
I thought it was yesterday. We were just chatting because he was telling me to go overseas because you know I missed one of my calls. So then, overseas. So he said he'll be calling us because he wanted to talk to you. He said to me, what's his card there? So go ahead and interview her.
Yes.
So actually, we eventually became one of the closest friends.
Yes.
So, as answered in the message, we
Yes.
so, loudspeaker.
That's correct.
Because so maybe it's unfortunate we can't be having him because I said in WhatsApp where he is. But maybe just to continue, during the times in the 90s, just after the new dispensation, there was a lot of stigma, and compared to now, people are coming out by a show and status zabo, but at that time but manje isn't all the times. Even now I couldn't ask you that question. I don't know because at that time kunzima kangaka
Ukhoneka kanjani
ukuthi ukhona ukukhuluma nge-HIV and AIDS and ube activist that much?
I became an activist when I was very young because I experienced discrimination when I was very young.
Okay.
And so for me, and my grandmother also was had a very strong personality.
Yeah. Okay.
She was alpha female. So to her, a spade was not a big spoon.
Okay.
So she never beat her about the bush on any issue. So if kwakunenkinga obhekene nayo or you had an embarrassing situation or you made a mistake, she wanted you to call it, you know, what it is.
That,
yeah, from an early age. So beyingekho indaba yokuthi uzoncengwa. No.
Yeah.
So for me to come out when I discovered it was very easy because also I was self-sufficient. You know, my grandparents were not educated, but they were hard workers. So as I told you, they were entrepreneurs and they could look after themselves. So my family never depended on anybody. So actually, whether you discriminated against me or you did not, it didn't mean anything. I didn't need anything from anybody. Even now, I still don't need anything from anybody. So even my children are brought up like that, to say you must stand for what you believe and you must say how you feel.
Yeah.
So and I think that is what South Africa needs today, because we are in a situation where there's a lot of nonsense that's going on and people tolerate, you know, BS, you know, all over the show. So, and which is why I think our country is not reaching its potential. The majority of our people are not educated. I don't understand why it's not compulsory for people to go to school. If you don't want to go to school, you must do something else. Instead, people are depending on grants. You know, we are just promoting a lot of dependence.
Yeah. So, just looking back, I know that you also work on a HIV program as a director at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. So how was it like meeting Tata, and how did it come about?
Well, Tata had been following my career over a long period of time. And he consulted with the late Dr. Agri.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't know this. I only knew about this when I started working for him. Because one of the surprising things is that I never went for for an interview. Apparently, because Dr. Cluster told him, like, he doesn't do interviews. If you want to employ him, you just employ him. So I got a call from Matiba's office, and then for me to go and meet with him, and also Kehla Shuban. So when I arrived,
Let's just hope this one is him.
yes.
Leadership. Yeah, all right. Grand, but njengoba ngikutshelile ukuthi ngihleli not a great one here. And thanks for calling. Yeah, on loudspeaker on Happy Days on podcast.
The great one, how are you? Yeah, you sound like you are very far away.
I am very far away, the great one.
And you decide to live without me.
Because I'm tired of you fighting the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Sometimes I must take a break.
Yeah.
No, some people think it's 17 months. And this is something we come from one discipline. Now we must all change. Like I want to support swallows.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to die with swallows. So we need to change sometimes.
Yeah.
How can we do change?
You can't hold on to something that doesn't work.
No. We honestly, we can't be sitting in a country that's got no electricity, a government that doesn't work, and we being governed by, I'm God.
Yeah, that's true. No, man, thanks for calling. I really wanted you to speak to know the great one, because you have to feel about him and his work, you know. So sometimes you need to show appreciation.
No, I can't overstate it. The great one is not just the title.
Yeah.
The great one is both an incredible vessel, and I just enjoy the views that are shared. Because every time I sit with the great one, I walk away a better person.
Yes,
And that's how we know people are great.
Yeah.
It's not that when you walk away, you think you know something.
Yeah.
There are others who have fought many battles before you. They'll continue to fight. They inspire us.
Yeah.
So the great one, keep going. We are more much.
Thank you so much, Musi. You're very kind.
Thanks, my friends. Ubekren.
Shut.
Sizokulinda ubuye ekhaya.
Yabuya man.
Eight others. All right, that was Mosi who insisted to talk to you during the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I thank you for giving us the opportunity, because it's not all the time that we speak to someone like you, and we're growing. All the times I always say, you are a strength to me, and a whole lot of other people out there, like Ashu Mosi, when you're talking to you, you always gain something, so which is very, very much important. But just to continue and talk about your work with the foundation, the Madiba Foundation, how was it like, because you persuaded the government to make sure that Abantu, they gain access to Umshanguzo, because at that time it was quite limited, and there was a mess during that particular government.
Well, to be quite honest, I did not. I failed to convince the government to provide treatment. And then over many years, I supported the government. At that time, the president was Thabo Mbeki. So I became a partly of government to try and assist them, to show them, why is it so necessary to provide treatment to people living with HIV. So I provided advice and I provided leadership and so on. Unfortunately, the then president refused to give our people treatment. He tried to find every reason not to provide treatment. I mean, one of the things I always ask myself is, why would someone say, like someone in government, say something is expensive when the money it's not his money? The money belongs to the people. You must use it for the wellness of the people.
Yeah.
But you can turn around and say, no, this thing is expensive. At whose expense are you talking? What expense are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because this is not like we are begging for money from your own pocket. This is the people's money. This is the people's taxes. And the people are saying, give us the treatment. And as a result, as you know now, unfortunately, almost 340,000 people died unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So at that time, part of assisting government meant I was part of the National AIDS Council, which is now called SANAC. Initially it was called National AIDS Council. Then later they changed the name to South African National AIDS Council. I was part of the very first one, which was chaired by Jacob Zuma. At that time he was the deputy president. So I think in our struggle, against HIV, for me that was the most frustrating time, because I could see, I could feel, I could sense how useless government can be, how our own people who had the resources, who had the power, could completely ignore the plight of their own people. Using all kinds of silly excuses, such as HIV is caused by poverty, simply because Thabo Mbeki didn't want to release the money. He actually felt it would be a waste of money to spend billions on a dying nation. Literally, HIV at that time was associated a lot with death and dying. So he then tried to find every excuse not to provide treatment. And it's so unfortunate that even today, he still refuses to acknowledge his mistakes. So a person like that, in my eyes, does not qualify to be a leader. To be a leader means that when you make mistakes, you acknowledge and you account for your actions and you apologize to those that you lead. Instead of doing that, you still want to say more, you still want to have more opinion, and you still expect people to believe it. So I think that South Africans are too generous, they are too kind. I don't think that Thabo Mbeki would survive under my grandmother's judgment, because my grandmother would call a spade a spade.
Yeah. Okay. We are still on Happy Days on a podcast. It's a happy day to have a good day, as it is. We're chilling with Dr Lucky Mazibuko, Simbiza, the great one like us. Soweto yonke, ngasho nje ukuthi is a true servant of not only the community of Soweto, but in South Africa in general, and perhaps even more South Africa pay, All right, so we are back on Happy Days. Thank you so much for continuing sharing with us your story, the great one. Let's talk about now you joining in media, particularly the Southern Western Township newspaper, Soweto because you became part. You just highlighted a bit more agri-classing, but how did you move into that space?
Yeah, well, I joined Soweto after certain attempts to do so.
Okay.
Initially, my hero was John Kolane. And John Kolane, I tried to make contact with him. Unfortunately, that did not happen. At that time, he was with 702.
Okay.
And then he also...
Very much controversial.
Yeah, he was also in print media as well. So I looked up to him. You know, he was I wouldn't call it controversial, but he was I think he was too ahead of his time.
Okay.
People are
but
just...
he was straightforward, just like your
Yeah, people are just not comfortable with the truth.
Yes.
You know, they always like to refer to a spade as a big spoon. So unfortunately, that did not happen. Then I called Soweto Dr. Cluster, and I told him about my situation, and I told him, you know, that I am a qualified journalist, even though I had no interest of working for anyone else at the time. But I could use my skills to assist insofar as HIV is concerned. So basically that is how it happened. Then he wanted me to have an interview with his other management team, and then like it happened everywhere else, I politely refused. I said no. If we are convinced about the need for us to do this thing, I prefer that we do it that way. But I'm not desperate for a job. I'm not looking for a job. So
you just want to contribute in teaching people.
I want to contribute to my people, to my country, and to the world. And that is how it happened. So then it was left to him to convince his management staff to say, this is what the situation is, and there's this chap.
This person more than it does.
So, and then he called me back and said, no man, at least just write something. Let's not call it an interview. Just write something so that we can be sure. You know, you can write. Yeah, because being a journalist or a columnist doesn't mean you can write. So I then wrote about the first experience that when I met with him and his secretary, Ulinda Frampton. I mean, he was over impressed.
The way, yeah.
And that is how I joined Soweto Emdeni. And then I spent most of the 11 years, of course, in newsroom, and also assisting with subbing as well. Sometimes, yes. Yeah.
So, ucabanga kanjani ukuthi athi ngene naku radio to really preach and educate and give them strength, you know, because those times were very difficult to cope, you know, for Abantu. I remember people were calling you. It was like that's not senzeka late a bit almost 7ish, but endlela besilalela ngaso bekungathi afternoon drive.
Yeah. Well, at that time, I think a lot of people were... I became their voice. You know, like when there's this thing that you want to talk about, but you can't say it. And there's this guy who somehow says exactly, you know, I mean, the types of things that even today that are happening behind the scenes, and the people that I can show you or name them, it's quite something else. So it dawned on me that, you know, I was speaking for a lot of people who wanted to say the same things, perhaps in even much better ways than I could. But for some reason, they just restricted themselves. And I always felt good. And I think the reason why, even my show later, when I did the Positive Minds show with Joseph M, it became a very popular show. It became one of the most popular talk shows, around Soweto. But the reason is because our people are muted. I don't know for what reason. I don't know whether we must continue blaming apartheid or there's just this there's just this collective bewitchment, where people simply refuse or they can't talk even when we are free. It's like the elephant story, the tied up elephant. That even when you free it still rotates there. Around the area into which it was confined. So exactly. So even that one is not, there's no chance anyway. So it's that type of a paralysis that even in politics, you can see that things are not okay. Our people are suffering. Our people are going through probably the hardest time. But it takes a long time for them to voice how they feel. And rather than voicing how they feel, they would rather not go to vote.
Yeah. That's how it is.
You see? So, I don't know whether maybe it's the way that South Africans are. I don't understand. I don't understand.
All right. Maybe just to take it further from what you're actually saying right now, maybe to talk about politics in South Africa, and just to be specific, leadership in South Africa. Where do we go wrong, Jay, according to your analysis?
Well, I think for me, if I can be very honest, I think we have no plan. We had no plan for this country. Fighting for liberation was just was romanticized.
Okay.
That is why even now, when a new minister of education, for instance, takes over, they do something different. You remember Kada Asmal? It was a different form of education.
Yes.
With the Muchecha, it's a different type of education.
Style,
Yeah, so there was never a plan.
Proper plan.
There was never a proper plan for this country. That's why there are so many loopholes. I'll just make you one example, for instance. How did the leadership, ANC in exile, agree to EPE, affirmative action? Because I never, in any literature ANC, I've never come across any policy, ebizwa EPE or affirmative action.
So it was just decided.
Yeah, but once they started negotiations, Namapunu in exile, which was led by the late Professor Van Zyl Slavert on the Bunu side, on the business side, and Oliver Tambo on our side, and other comrades. Then we started hearing now about black economic empowerment. And how do you employ EPE in affirmative action in a situation where the majority are the oppressed? So if, for instance, you were in England, then EPE would apply to black people, to Caucasians, to Asians, and so on, because they are in the minority. You see, that is how generally PE works. So how do you agree to PE? And this is actually the reason why we've got these problems, the corruption that we've got. Because this PE that was agreed to, it only allows the few who have access to political power to access the economy. That is why the majority of our people, even today, they will remain workers. They will remain peasants. I mean, how do you explain? We've just come now from an elective conference movement. In a country where there's 60 million people, only 4,000 people must decide our future. How does that? I mean, what nonsense is that? People and the media, everybody is going to be focused on that. Who's going to be the president? Because that is the person who must speak for me.
Yeah.
That will not happen. For me, that will not happen.
So, but what do you make of the point, Yama, a lot of political parties going on in South Africa? Maybe just to lay an example with overseas, you know that you have Democrats and the other party. So there's only two parties. So you know, Mangabele, I say then you just vote for this one, and it actually makes the so-called coalition government not to work because okay, let's say ANC, I'm voting 2024, I'm voting ANC out, I'm voting the other party, they're voting other parties, and then eventually, okay, ANC maybe win. But coalitions are formed there and there, you know, just to say, okay, strong and but still, the coalition that was there at Joburg, and you're talking about the province, it didn't work. So how do you make sure that we have a working government with a whole lot of political parties?
Well, Amiti, it's exactly what I just spoke about earlier. So for you to gain economic freedom of some sort, you must form your own party. You see, I mean, you get okay. Let's make a practical example, like now.
Yeah. Okay.
With the elective conference of our movement, you get a province like KZN, from where our former president Jacob Zuma, emanates. So the power that these people get is imagined. You get what I'm saying? I mean, a former president goes to a conference. He's not even nominated at that conference among his own comrades. The province from where he comes doesn't get anything.
You know, out of the 7 people, no one from KZN.
Exactly. So it just illustrates to you, Uguti, there's a few people who think they can manipulate the whole nation. That is where, for me, the sad thing is our own people, the populace, has reneged on their responsibility. Uguti, they must call people out. If you are corrupt, if you are found to be corrupt, if you are suspected of corruption, you are out. But that cannot happen because now we've become so paralyzed by silence that even if you've done something wrong, you can still talk as much nonsense as you want. Because
you find leadership, that doing wrong things.
Yes.
But still, no one is saying anything about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the level of education. It's a mess. My daughter got an exemption. But that exemption was useless because she did, what's this, maths? Maths literacy.
Yeah.
And now she got all these distinctions and so, but they were useless because she couldn't go to university. So so the Department of Education, all they are interested in are the numbers. To say so many matriculants got this pass mark and so on, we've done well. You've done nonsense.
Yeah.
You've produced a group of people who are useless, who can't think for themselves, who can't do anything for themselves. That's why even now we've got so many graduates, university graduates, who are just roaming the streets because they are not self-sufficient. They feel good, somebody must do something. What nonsense is all that? I mean, your parents struggle so much, you go to school. Why did you go to school? So that Lucky Mazibuko. That is absolute nonsense. So the problem that we have is that there was no plan to build this country, to build the individual, self-sufficiency. That is what makes the country prosper. You see? So you have boyenza neskolweni boyo crema. It's like uba doctor and then all you know okay magane headache, you know, you can't think okay this guy maybe he's got erectile dysfunction, so every time he goes to bed he's sick. Umuntu magaza nje athi have a persistent headache umhlaba nje ngamapanado. It doesn't work like that. You look at crime.
It's a mess.
Somebody can kill me today. My children will suffer. If by a stroke of luck, because nothing works, if by a stroke of luck that guy gets arrested, he will go to jail and eat 3 times a day.
While someone doesn't have suffer.
Yeah, he's got security in prison, this guy. He's got lights. Of course, he's in jail, so it's not the only thing he loses is his freedom, basically. But if he's dedicated, he can come out as a lawyer or as a doctor or as a professional. And my kids, because now I can't provide for them, there's no one now who's going to take them to school, which is the irony of all ironies. They are suffering now. This guy comes out of prison, he's now a lawyer, he's a doctor, he's whatever, and he passes here by my house all the time. He sees my kids. My kids are now Nyaope addicts. No one focuses on the victim.
Yeah, that's true. That's
so that's how messed up this whole thing. It's the same thing with racism. I mean, one woman will come out, yeah, black people this, another guy will come out, yes, black people that, and then the whole country bends. Everybody makes noise. There's Orania there. There's a country that is being built within South Africa as we speak. They've just started building a university in that country as we speak. But our leaders are so weak, they're so useless. They can't confront that kind of thing. And then in the next 50 to 100 years, they will have a Palestine-Israel problem that our kids, our great-grandchildren will be faced with in this country. That is how weak our leadership is.
So basically, this whole thing started a very long time ago. Now, comparing to the current leaders, you think Bona mess up if there is a part of because I'm into
you know, like I explained to you earlier, this thing is not easy. You need to have a proper intellectual understanding of not only politics, but also of the status quo in the country. Firstly, Konamanje, it's a popular song for me or anybody to say Mandela is a sellout.
Yes.
Everybody can say that.
Yes.
But nobody can tell us ukuthi abomkhulu babo bona babenzani ngaleso sikhathi. Because Mandela, when he went to prison with his colleagues, those people were actually facing a death sentence. They were not supposed to go to jail to start with. So, number one, how do you call that kind of a person a sellout? When ungakasitsheli ukuthi umkhulu wakho bekenza intanga yakhe. Yeah. And I don't care whether Julius Malema or whoever. Yes, just tell us a little bit ukuthi umkhulu wakho yena bekenza. Asikakakhulumi ngabo. These guys abaye they were supposed to die for this country. Sitshele nje wena ngomkhulu wakho.
Ukuthi umkhulu wakho irole yakhe.
Yeah. Why yena bekanga yange ejele nabo Mandela? You see?
Yeah.
That's where you must start.
Okay.
And then you move on. Ukuthi wayona le MK le or whatever else, he is the person who was actually saying we are going very soft on this struggle. We need a military wing. The same person you are calling a sellout is the one who started MK. The very same MK that went to exile and became useless.
Useless as it is.
Yeah, there are many people, including the 76 generation, that went to exile. And when they got there, they were so disappointed. They can tell their own stories. We listen to their stories all the time. They went there and they were very angry. Remember when they got there, they were energetic.
Yeah.
and they were full of anger. No, the leaders that side, they say, no, relax, man. Chill, man.
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah.
Yeah, hlala la wena kunankinga ufuna ukufunda or ufuna ukwenza. There was no struggle here. You can't call, that's why there was a peaceful settlement. There was no struggle here. Nobody struggled. I mean, today, leader. He was in London. How do you struggle in London? Namhlanje, we are told is the most important intellectual. That's why he let down his people like that. He has no conscience, that man. So you get into the struggle for wrong reasons. Because your father is a leader, your parents are leaders, then when you get cushioned. I mean, abantwana babo or Tambo, where did they struggle? Utali Tambo, he came back here, he did a television show. People of the South. What kind of a child of a struggle icon does that? So it's a mess. This thing is a fucked up situation. And there's no other way of putting it. You can hate me or do whatever, but I'm also tired of this. That's why I actually retired from politics. You know, I went to school in Nabo Panyaza. I was hot-headed. These guys would have killed me long ago. But what is happening now is absolute nonsense. Absolute crap. So the point is that is why this country is in a mess. It's in a mess because we compromised on a whole lot of issues. From Gulabante Saspege, even Rich, even if you look at Codesa, do you know anybody in society who was invited to go to Codesa and contribute?
No.
Never.
No. It was not an open thing.
No.
Yeah.
It was on behalf. People were doing things on our behalf, and we sat back and we watched them.
Now things are getting wrong. We are surprised with how.
Exactly, because everything, we were just paralyzed. We put too much confidence in hungry people. These people, when they came back from exile, I'll tell you, I know, they were hungry. They were hungry, these bastards. Yeah. And they know what they were hungry. That is why they don't care. You see, they don't care.
So how about, okay, I'm sorry to just come in there. How about those who are jumping ship now? We're talking the likes of Agumalima, because they come from the very same ANC and having their own land policy now as the EFF.
Yeah.
What is the positive role, do you think, Amalidas Afana Nochulas Malime and others, of course, Mohamed Mashaba, our dear friend Musima Imani?
Let me tell you what Julius. What Julius, I admire him a lot. His courage. He's a very courageous person. Yeah. He's a very influential person, right? But I think that somewhere along the way, he lost that consciousness. You see what I'm saying? He lost the plot.
Okay.
Yeah, and then because I was also critical of him when I was writing as well.
Okay.
But he never ridiculed me or, I think there's that silent mutual respect. But I admire him a lot from where and how he started. It's the same thing like Operation Tutu. Where you get these young people who are militant, who can see wrong things and they want to correct them. But the issue is money in this country. Okay. The issue is poverty in this country. Because these people are not like me. Okay. You see, me, I will criticize you,
yeah.
And you will understand that I love you. I'm not critical because yes. No. My criticism is genuine. It is constructive.
Yeah, but remember you called me into order quite a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are many people who have lost the plot. And at some point I thought I had retired from talking too much. But here I am now. You put me back into into the hot pan.
Yeah, we love our country. There are so many things that are happening, but we still love the country.
Yeah. So I think what is needed now to answer your question more directly is a plan.
Okay.
Rich, let me make you another example. Education. You spoke earlier about education.
Yeah.
Why is it that we don't have a language in this country, a national language?
Okay.
30 years on.
And then we now incorporating everything.
Yeah, so it's not just about politics, it's also about academics, so-called academics. You see? So initially, Manje, we were talking about how 12-year-olds can have an abortion without parental consent. You understand? So which means now you must look at how this thing is designed to imprison you. The government will give you nisbizan lento of prevent.
Okay.
Contraceptives, right? It will spend money to provide contraceptives for you so that you don't get pregnant.
Okay. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's a budget that should be going to do as important.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? We give you that money.
Yeah.
You still get pregnant.
Okay. You
Ilogikona opportunity.
Yeah.
Yabo?
Prevent, yeah.
Yeah, angithi unalelungelo lokuthi ungaprevent.
You can do what,
Yeah, angithi. So you decide when ukuthi unalelungelo lokungaprevent.
Yeah.
So you don't use those contraceptives. You get pregnant.
Yeah.
Angithi.
Yeah.
When you get pregnant, your family has nothing because they are unemployed.
Okay. Yes.
Right? You get a child support.
Yeah.
So we must accept manje. Sikunike imali yokuthi prevent lento. Seyikhona manje.
Yeah.
Sesikumele sikunike imali futhi yokuthi usupport. Lento besitry ukuyi-avoid ukuthi ingenzeki. Uhamba uye esikolweni. Isikole is free. By the way, you still don't go to school. And the people must understand that. The people who are paying tax. This is nonsense. It can't work. And the more kids you have, the more grant you get. And it's not a lot of money, by the way.
But you still get pregnant for it.
Yeah. So for you to get something, get pregnant.
Is that bad?
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
So but why
So instead ukuthi abantwana you must ukhulisa umntwana khona manje sinabantwana. They understand ukuthi in my family, you must look at my family. Most of my family are successful people. Very successful in their own right. Yeah. Even if we are taller, but a spade is a spade. You must go to school. Nobody's gonna cushion you. If ever go to meet uyazala uzozikhulisela lo mntanakho. Akuna muntu okumele ukuthi akuneze. So in other words, you must take responsibility for your actions. This is one of the things that is not here in this country. People make excuses. They find things to do. See? Yeah. Even the leadership, during COVID, the Minister of Police was busy blaming alcohol and looking for receipts, cigarette receipts from people. What nonsense is that? Smoking is not a crime in South Africa. Drinking is not a crime.
To police.
That's it. Instead of assisting people to drink responsibly, that's all you do. You don't want to go around and say alcohol. Educate people to
but
drink
this is
responsibly.
The great one. Even the very same leaders, by tatile yona le mali le ebeyiplanele yona iCovid. Kushuthi corruption like the country is more like being officialized in disguise.
Mfowethu kwakutshwa amathuna la 1 million
to us singabahamba
wake wezwaphila in any country la kugujwa khona amathuna for ukuthi abantu bafe
kuthi ibani grand nibe ready.
Yeah, just because mali kumele kudliwe le mali, there must be a way yokuthi kudliwe le mali. I-COVID is just like flu. It's like any other thing. I mean, we've survived a lot of things on our own. I survived COVID, man. I'm one of the longest people living with HIV in the world. I survived
3 decades now.
I survived COVID. Yeah, I've survived COVID. Why can't we educate our people to be self-reliant? You see, we can't do that because we want to keep them illiterate.
Yeah.
We want to keep them uneducated. We want to keep them reliant on the government.
So you even see with ministers and the very same the president, Martin is cutting COVID, or the time COVID was more vast, they were like enjoying themselves. What's the term they use, or president, about family meeting? Okay, this is what's going on now. You know.
Yeah, and look at the economy. Look at the economy now.
What can you say?
Look at the economy. Look at what's going on. People are suffering even worse.
Maybe just to wrap it up, what do you say? I know you talked about the same thing on most cases. Issuers come. Operator, as it is, survive. Okay, you might not sometimes this is how you maneuver because South Africa just but Tina support, you know, like us, but now I'm thinking COVID, even now. With the ESCOM, survive with your workers that needs to get paid at the same time. They have families to support.
You know, Rich, that's the saddest story because we've had to cut down on stuff. It's agonizing. You know, it's one of the things as in Warishayo all the time. On every other business that I'm doing, we had to cut down on stuff. Initially, when COVID started, we thought maybe because our internship had 2 months, we started food parcels.
Yeah.
We never went to government for a grant. I'm HIV positive myself, more than 30 years. I never received a donation, and I don't ask for one. That's how our people must be taught. That's what they must do. People must work for themselves. Get out there. And there's so much to be done. There's so much to be done. You see. So a problem, we are paralyzed and we are refusing to get out of it. You know, South Africans, actually even Ngayo case. Remember, Tina, we grew up without electricity, but the country was functioning.
Yeah.
But a problem is not even electricity, it's the politicians. We've taken everything and given it to the wrong people who are hungry. So as safuna ma credentials wakho ukuthi konje, what did you do? I mean, when even me as an individual, I had a scholarship of more than R1 million in partnership in Rosebank College, where 40 kids could go and study. You know how South Africa has gone bad. Not even one of those children has come back to me to say thank you. Not even one. Not even one of those kids who studied business management has come back to me and said, great one, how can I contribute? Not one out of 40 children who benefited. So that just describes how rotten this place is. And it doesn't look like soon kuzoba something unless we change. So we do things from wherever where we are. But Mina, I will never give you anything for free.
That's true.
I will never. You work for what you have.
Yeah.
Everybody in my family knows that. Everybody who's associated to me, even the person who loves me, they don't get what do you call this, allowance? No. We work, Baba. Umuntu wami, we work. Umtanami, we work. We staff members, we work. Yes, and there's nothing for free. Mina bengithwala igroup zotshwala ngiya eWestgate when I was 12 years old. At 4 in the morning. From 4 in the morning, mabaqeda ukuthengisa 6 o'clock ibhasi elize Soweto sengimile lapho. I'm on time. If I miss that bus, I can't go to school. And then when uzongifuna ugwayi,
Just for free.
uzongifuna ugwayi. Yeah?
Yeah.
Ufuna plate. Mangithi ngiyabheka unenyawo ezithu yonke into yakhe iphelele.
Alright.
You just want something for free.
Impilo enjani?
Hamba ku government.
Uyothola nama-grant akho.
Hamba ku government.
So the zone started by default.
No, but in the zone.
You were chilling. You used to chill. I remember. You used to chill.
Yeah, in the zone I had no intention of having a pub. To be quite honest, you know me, I'm a very honest person.
Yeah.
I had no intention of owning a pub, but I love people. I love hanging around people. So my friends used to come and chill with me, and then my house became popular. You know, as a chilling spot. Kuyablonywa, yeah. Abantu bayazi abazela into zabo nokudla kwabo, whatever they want. Nabantu babo, you know. And then as time goes on, then my friend said, no man, why ungafaki 2 cases nyanga? Yabo. Yes, ufake nokudla sithenge kuwe. Ngoba sometimes sekuvaliwe kamama uyangichaza. And then sasiphelele. So that's how it started. Then it started like that illegally, like my grandmother. You see?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like my grandmother, police started harassing me, and then I started legalizing it, and then it became legal, and then the standard kept on growing, and then like
now it's
where it is. Now it's a hotspot. Yeah. Everybody who's somebody like you comes here.
No man, the great one. Thank you so much. We always, when we do a podcast, we have this is a sponsored, our label is sponsored by Deluxe.
Yes.
Who's sponsored by the podcast there too. So every time we leave you ngesikipha Christos khumbula ngaso, you know. Mama umuntu uthanda ukugcoka amakhalakhala ngoba ngiyabona without ehlala igcoka smart.
Yes.
Yabonga sila abathanda uba casual kakhulu njengathi uzosinikeza umama ekhaya asigcoke. At least manibhekane yabona ukuthi i-podcast yaletha isikipha sesobakhumbula ngaso.
Yeah, vele lo mama uthatha yonke into.
Uyithatha yonke.
Ayikho into ayishiya.
No man, thank you so much for inviting. I'm thankful for welcoming us once again.
Yes.
Yeah. It's always nice to talk to you.
Yes.
And it's happy days. We signing off in the right.